I stood frozen in my father's mahogany-paneled office as he casually announced that my brother Travis was taking over as CEO of the company I had built from nothing to $50 million. The betrayal cut deeper than any business decision could. It was the culmination of a lifetime of being overlooked despite my brilliance and dedication. My father's smile when delivering the news revealed everything I needed to know about his true feelings. In that moment, I made a decision that would shake the foundations of everything my family believed about power, loyalty, and who truly controls success. 7 years ago, at 25, fresh out of MIT with honors in computer science and biomedical engineering, I had a vision that would change medical diagnostics forever. My senior thesis had focused on developing an algorithm that could detect patterns in medical imaging that human eyes often missed. It wasn't just theoretical, it worked. My professors had been amazed, suggesting I patent it immediately. I knew this could save lives. When I first told my father, Gregory Wilson, about my plans to start a company based on my algorithm, he chuckled. That deep, patronizing laugh I'd grown accustomed to throughout my childhood. "That's a cute little project, Joe," he said, barely looking up from his Wall Street journal. "But real business takes experience, connections, capital, things Travis understands." Travis, my older brother, by 3 years, had graduated from Harvard Business School with middling grades but exceptional networking skills. He'd immediately taken a vice president position at Wilson Holdings, our father's commercial real estate development company. Despite his mediocre performance, he was being groomed to take over the family business while I was expected to eventually settle down with some nice young executive and provide grandchildren. I refused to accept that future. With my algorithm in hand and determination in my heart, I approached 27 venture capital firms. Each rejection was more demoralizing than the last. The medical field is too regulated. The hospitals will never adopt AI technology this quickly. Perhaps with more real-world testing. Do you have anyone with business experience on your team? That last question always came with a look, the kind that said, "You're too young, too female, too theoretical to succeed in this space." After the 27th rejection, I returned to my small apartment in Cambridge and made a decision that terrified me. I mortgaged my apartment, maxed out 3 credit cards, and liquidated the small inheritance my grandmother had left me. I had exactly $173,000, enough for 6 months of development if I was extremely frugal. I named the company Wilson Medical Technologies, partly to honor my grandmother who had always believed in me, and partly as a subtle challenge to my father. If he wouldn't support me, I would build a more innovative Wilson company on my own. The early days were brutal. I converted my second bedroom into an office, hired 2 former classmates as part-time programmers, and worked 20-hour days refining the algorithm. We subsisted on ramen noodles and coffee coding until our eyes burned. By month 4, we had a prototype, but our funds were dwindling fast. The breakthrough came when I cold-called Dr. Amanda Foster, a renowned radiologist at Massachusetts General Hospital. I'd read every paper she'd published on diagnostic accuracy and knew she was frustrated by the high rate of missed abnormalities in standard screenings. "You have 5 minutes," she said when she finally agreed to meet me. Those 5 minutes turned into 3 hours as I demonstrated the software. "Doctor." Foster was skeptical but intrigued enough to offer a small trial running my algorithm alongside standard protocols on 50 anonymized patient scans. 2 weeks later, my phone rang at 3 in the morning. "Joe, this is Amanda Foster. Your program flagged something in patient 37 that 3 separate radiologists missed. It's a small vascular abnormality consistent with a rare condition called moya-moya disease. We confirmed it with additional testing. This patient has been complaining of migraines for years with no diagnosis. Your software may have saved her life." My hands shook as I ended the call. The validation was overwhelming, but more importantly, our technology had made a tangible difference in someone's life. Within days, Dr. Foster had introduced me to the hospital's innovation department. Within weeks, we had our first contract, $1.2 million, for a year-long implementation across their diagnostic imaging department. That night, I called my parents to share the news. My mother congratulated me warmly. My father said, "Well, that's a nice little start, Joe. Let's see if you can turn it into something sustainable." I hung up the phone more determined than ever to prove him wrong. 3 years into building Wilson Medical Technologies, we had expanded to 50 employees and $12 million in annual revenue. Our diagnostic software was being used in 17 hospitals across New England, and we were in talks with major healthcare networks nationwide. I had moved the company from my apartment to a proper office in Cambridge's tech corridor, where our team of engineers and medical consultants worked tirelessly to improve our products. The morning my father first showed up unannounced at my office marked a turning point I should have recognized sooner. "Impressive operation you've got here, Josephine," he said, using my full name as he always did when he wanted to establish authority. He walked around our open-plan workspace, examining everything with the scrutinizing eye of someone appraising property. "Travis mentioned your company is doing well. I thought I should see for myself." I felt a flicker of pride that he'd finally taken interest despite the condescension in his tone. "We're growing faster than projected. Our retention rate with hospitals is 100%. And patient outcomes are improving measurably wherever our system is implemented." He nodded, examining our wall of recognition, which included a recent innovation award from the Massachusetts Medical Society. "And your financials, profit margins must be tight in healthcare technology." The question caught me off guard. I'd never discussed our detailed financials with my family. "We're healthy, reinvesting most profits into R&D, but we've been in the black for 18 months. His eyes narrowed slightly. "Smart to reinvest, though perhaps it's time to consider bringing in more experienced financial leadership. I know several CFOs who might be interested." I bristled. "Our current financial team is excellent, Dad. We've managed growth without taking on debt, and our projections—" "Just a suggestion, Joe," he interrupted, checking his watch. "I have to run to a board meeting. We should talk more about your business strategy sometime. Perhaps you could join us for Sunday dinner this weekend." The Sunday dinners at my parents' Beacon Hill mansion had been a Wilson tradition I'd largely avoided since starting the company. They inevitably involved Travis dominating conversation with tales of his business conquests while my father nodded approvingly. My mother would ask when I might meet someone special, as though my company wasn't the most special thing in my life. That Sunday, I noticed Travis taking unusual interest in my business. Between bites of my mother's pot roast, he peppered me with questions about our client acquisition strategy and patent protections. "So, your algorithm is fully patented?" he asked, swirling his wine. "Of course," I replied. "We have 7 patents now with 3 more pending." "Fascinating industry," Travis commented. "Healthcare technology is booming. Dad and I were just discussing diversification strategies for Wilson Holdings." I felt a chill that had nothing to do with the dining room temperature. Wilson Medical Technologies is not a diversification opportunity. It's my company. My father chuckled. "No one's suggesting otherwise, Josephine. Family should take interest in family success." The conversation moved on, but the sense of unease remained. Back at the office, I channeled my energy into expansion. We hired Diane Chen, a brilliant programmer with experience at Google Health, who quickly became my most trusted employee and friend. She understood both the technical complexities and the human implications of our work in a way that complemented my vision perfectly. "The algorithm needs to be more adaptive," Diane said, one late night as we pored over performance data. "Each hospital has different patient demographics, equipment calibrations, even scanning techniques. We need to build in machine learning capabilities that adjust to these variables automatically." This insight led to our next breakthrough, a self-optimizing version of the software that improved its accuracy over time based on local usage patterns. Dr. James Lawson, a neurologist from Johns Hopkins who had become an informal advisor, helped us refine the parameters for various specialties. "This is revolutionary," Dr. Lawson said after reviewing our beta results. "You're not just building a better diagnostic tool, you're creating a system that learns and grows with each medical facility." As the company expanded, I worked relentlessly, often sleeping on the office couch. There were no relationships, few friendships outside work, just absolute dedication to building something meaningful. My employees became my family, and our mission saving lives through better diagnostics became my purpose. When we hit $10 million in revenue, I finally bought my first house, a modest 3-bedroom in Somerville with a small garden. The day I got the keys, I stood alone in the empty living room, overwhelmed with pride. This was tangible proof that I had created something valuable through my own intelligence and determination. That weekend, my father called. "Joe, we need to discuss an opportunity. Wilson Holdings is looking to expand its portfolio, and your company has caught the attention of our board. We'd like to offer a family investment." 2 days later, I sat in my father's office as he laid out his proposal, $5 million for 30% of Wilson Medical Technologies. The money would accelerate our growth significantly, but the thought of my father having that much control made me deeply uncomfortable. "I've been tracking your finances," he said casually, sliding a folder across his desk. Inside was a detailed analysis of my company's performance, cash flow, and growth projections. "You're doing well, but with proper backing, you could do much better." I was stunned that he'd compiled this information without my knowledge. "How did you get these numbers?" He waved dismissively. "Business intelligence. The point is, you're at a critical growth stage. You need capital to scale, and bank loans come with strings. This is family money, Joe. No interest, no repayment schedule, just equity." After 2 weeks of negotiations and against my better judgment, I accepted a modified deal, $5 million for 20%, with clear language maintaining my position as CEO and majority shareholder. The papers were signed during another Sunday dinner, my father raising a toast to Wilson Family Enterprises growing stronger together. As I signed my name, I caught Travis watching me with an expression I couldn't quite decipher. It wasn't quite jealousy, nor was it admiration. It was something more calculating. I should have recognized it as the look of someone sizing up an acquisition target. 2 years after my father's investment, Wilson Medical Technologies had grown exponentially. Our valuation had reached $28 million, we employed 112 people, and our software was being used in over 60 medical facilities across the country. The investment had indeed accelerated our growth, but the true drivers were the 3 new patents I'd developed that revolutionized how AI could predict treatment outcomes based on diagnostic data. Our expanded leadership team included top talent recruited from major tech companies: Lucy Winters, our CFO, who had previously worked at Oracle; Mark Daniels, our CTO, who had left a senior position at Microsoft to join us; and Sarah Thompson, our marketing director, who had built her reputation at Johnson & Johnson. I had selected each personally, not just for their impressive resumes, but for their genuine belief in our mission. We moved into a prestigious office building in Boston's tech corridor, 6,000 square feet of modern workspace with views of the Charles River. The office hummed with energy and purpose. We had engineering teams dedicated to different aspects of our technology, medical consultants who ensured clinical relevance, and a growing sales force that was spreading our technology nationwide. My leadership style had developed in direct opposition to my father's old-school approach. Where he ruled through intimidation and hierarchy, I fostered collaboration and transparency. Our Monday all-hands meetings were forums where anyone from executive to intern could share ideas or concerns. We celebrated successes collectively and addressed challenges together. This approach yielded results. Employee turnover was minimal in an industry known for job hopping. Our product development cycles were efficient because everyone understood and believed in what we were building. Hospitals reported increases in diagnostic accuracy of up to 40% when using our software, translating to earlier treatments, better outcomes, and saved lives. Travis began attending our quarterly board meetings as the family representative shortly after our valuation hit $20 million. He would sit silently in the corner, occasionally asking questions that revealed his limited understanding of our technology. "So this AI thing," he'd interject during a presentation on our latest algorithm, "enhancements can't hospitals just buy it from Google or something? What makes ours special?" I would patiently explain our proprietary approaches, the years of specialized development, and our deep integration with clinical workflows. He would nod as though absorbing the information, but his eyes would glaze over at the technical details. After meetings, he would corner individual board members, engaging in hushed conversations that stopped abruptly when I approached. I told myself he was just networking. It was what Travis did best after all, but unease lingered. Our international expansion began with a hospital network in London, followed quickly by partnerships in Germany and France. I found myself traveling frequently, meeting with healthcare administrators, and presenting at medical technology conferences. Forbes magazine featured me in an article titled "Healthcare Tech's Rising Star," highlighting both the company's success and my journey as a female founder in a predominantly male industry. The European deals were crucial for our growth trajectory, particularly a potential $10 million contract with a major hospital system in Germany. I spent weeks preparing for the presentation, collaborating with our technical and medical teams to ensure every detail was perfect. The The morning of the presentation, I was reviewing my notes in the conference room of a Berlin hotel when Travis walked in unexpectedly. Surprise, he grinned, adjusting his cufflinks. Dad thought you could use some family support for the big presentation. Plus, I've been wanting to see how these European deals are structured. This is a technical presentation, Travis, I said carefully. We'll be discussing integration of our platform with their existing systems, regulatory compliance, and clinical validation protocols. He waved dismissively. Business is business. Besides, the Wilson name carries weight. Having two of us here shows them the family commitment behind the company. I had no time to argue. The German executives arrived and the presentation began. I methodically explained our technology, the implementation timeline, and the expected outcomes. The hospital's medical director seemed particularly impressed by our case studies. Just as we were discussing financial terms, Travis interrupted. What my sister hasn't mentioned is our flexibility on pricing. For a system-wide implementation like this, Wilson Holdings would be prepared to offer substantial discounts in exchange for a longer contract term. The room fell silent. The German executives exchanged confused glances. Wilson Holdings is not involved in this negotiation, I clarified quickly. Wilson Medical Technologies operates independently, and our pricing structure is as outlined in the proposal documents. Well, technically there is Wilson Family Investment, Travis persisted. And as representatives of that investment, we could certainly consider alternative arrangements. The meeting devolved into awkward confusion. I managed to salvage the situation by requesting a brief recess during which I firmly instructed Travis to remain silent or leave. We ultimately secured the contract, but the damage was done. The German executives clearly wondered who actually had authority to speak for the company. As we left the meeting, I confronted Travis in the hallway. What were you thinking? You nearly derailed a multi-million-dollar deal with misinformation. He looked genuinely surprised. I was trying to help close the deal. That's what I do. No, Travis. You don't understand our business model, our cost structures, or our negotiation strategies. Please don't interfere again. He held up his hands in surrender, but his smile didn't reach his eyes. Just trying to be supportive, sis. Dad will be glad to hear the deal went through, even if there was a little miscommunication. Later that evening, I called my father to express my concerns about Travis's unexpected appearance and interference. He was overeager, my father dismissed. Travis has always been passionate about family business interests. Take it as a compliment that he wants to learn from your success. Dad, he misrepresented our company's relationship with Wilson Holdings. That's not learning, it's interfering. My father's tone cooled. Travis has excellent business instincts, Joe. Sometimes those instincts take different forms than your more technical approach. You might benefit from his perspective as you scale. I ended the call frustrated and unsettled. Looking back, I should have recognized this incident for what it was, not merely Travis's incompetence, but a deliberate testing of boundaries, an assertion of Wilson family authority over my company. And most disturbing of all, I remembered seeing my father smile slightly when I described how Travis had interrupted the presentation. It wasn't disappointment in his son's behavior, it was satisfaction. When Wilson Medical Technologies reached the $50 million valuation milestone, we celebrated with a company-wide event. Our team had grown to 150 people, our technology was being used in over 100 hospitals worldwide, and we were preparing for an initial public offering that would take us to the next level. The IPO would not only provide capital for further expansion, but would cement our position as a leader in medical AI technology. The preparations for going public consumed us. As CEO, I was working 18-hour days with our executive team lawyers and investment bankers. We needed to ensure our financial records were impeccable, our growth projections solid, and our corporate governance beyond reproach. I personally reviewed thousands of pages of documentation, determined that everything would be perfect. It was during this intense period of preparation that Lucy, our CFO, brought something concerning to my attention. Joe, I found some financial irregularities in our quarterly reports, she said, placing a folder on my desk one evening when most of the staff had gone home. There are payments going to consultants I don't recognize. I opened the folder to find documentation of payments totaling nearly $300,000 to a company called WH Strategic Advisors over the past 6 months. I never approved these, I said, scanning the documents. Who authorized them? Lucy looked uncomfortable. That's the thing, they have your electronic signature, but there's no corresponding contract in our system. I checked with legal and they have no record of this consultancy. Further investigation revealed that WH Strategic Advisors had been incorporated just 1 week before the first payment, with a business address that traced back to an office suite owned by Wilson Holdings. A discreet inquiry by our legal team uncovered that the sole employee of this strategic advisory firm was Travis. My brother had been receiving payments from my company without my knowledge or approval. Someone had used my electronic signature to authorize these payments, which meant either my credentials had been compromised or someone with high-level access had abused their privileges. I confronted my father at his office the next day, bringing all the documentation. "Did you know about this?" I demanded, spreading the papers across his desk. He barely glanced at them. "Travis has been providing valuable strategic guidance to ensure the family investment is protected. The board approved, bringing him on as an advisor." "The board never voted on this," I countered. "I'm the CEO and chairperson. These payments were authorized fraudulently." My father leaned back in his chair, studying me with a coldness I'd seen directed at business rivals but never at family. "The executive committee of the board approved it in a special session." "There is no executive committee," I said, my voice rising. "Our corporate bylaws don't provide for that." He shrugged. "The majority shareholders felt it was prudent to create one to handle sensitive matters." "I am the majority shareholder," I reminded him. "For now," he replied ominously. I left his office shaking with rage, but determined to understand what was happening. Over the next 2 weeks, I discovered my father and brother had been having private meetings with 2 of our board members, both longtime friends of my father who had joined after his investment. They had been reviewing confidential company information and discussing succession planning. The betrayal crystallized one evening when I returned unexpectedly to the office after a dinner meeting was canceled. Passing by our small conference room, I heard Travis's voice. "It'll be mine within months," he was saying to someone on speakerphone. "The IPO preparation has her distracted. She doesn't see what's happening right under her nose. Once the restructuring is complete, she'll be pushed to a technical role where she can't cause problems." I didn't confront him then. Instead, I began methodically building relationships with each member of my executive team, ensuring their loyalty by sharing my vision for the company post-IPO. I highlighted the roles they would play in our expansion, the equity they would receive, and the impact we would continue to have on patient care. With Lucy's help, I also quietly documented every success the company had achieved under my leadership, every patent I had personally developed, and every key client relationship I had nurtured. I began having private lunches with our largest investors, reinforcing my role as the innovative force behind our technology. Meanwhile, I instructed our legal team to conduct a comprehensive review of our corporate governance documents looking for vulnerabilities. They discovered that my father had attempted to introduce changes to our bylaws that would create an executive chairperson role with authority over the CEO. The changes required board approval at our next quarterly meeting, scheduled for the following month. I was preparing a strategy to block these changes when my father called an emergency board meeting with less than 24 hours' notice. The agenda was vague, strategic reorganization discussion, but I knew exactly what was happening. I arrived at the meeting armed with a document our legal team had discovered in our original investment agreement, a clause requiring 72 hours' notice for any board meeting addressing leadership changes. It was a small clause my lawyer had insisted on, which I had forgotten about until our legal review. As my father began discussing the proposed reorganization, I interrupted. "I'm sorry, but this meeting is not properly constituted according to Section 7.3 of our investment agreement. Any votes taken today would be invalid and subject to legal challenge." The room fell silent. My father's face reddened as he reviewed the document I provided. The meeting was adjourned with barely concealed fury from my father, who left without speaking to me. I had won this skirmish, but the war was clearly just beginning. That night, I received a text from my mother. "Your father wants the family to gather for dinner tomorrow to celebrate your company's milestone. Please come, Joe. Family should stand together in times of success." I knew it wasn't really a celebration, but I went anyway, determined to understand the full extent of what I was facing. The next evening, I drove to my parents' Beacon Hill estate with a sense of foreboding. The family home, a 6-bedroom colonial that had been photographed for Architectural Digest after my mother's extensive renovation, held few happy memories for me. It had always been a showcase more than a home, a symbol of the Wilson family's success rather than a place of warmth. When I arrived, I was surprised to find not just my parents and Travis, but also Walter Simmons and Peter Gallagher, my father's longtime attorneys who specialized in corporate restructuring. They weren't family friends who might naturally be invited to a celebration dinner. Their presence confirmed my suspicions about the true nature of this gathering. Joe, there she is, our tech genius. My father greeted me with unusual enthusiasm, clapping me on the shoulder as he guided me into the formal dining room. Crystal glasses were already filled with expensive champagne, and my mother had prepared her signature beef Wellington, a dish reserved for significant occasions. A toast, my father announced once we were seated, to Wilson Medical Technologies, reaching $50 million in valuation. A remarkable achievement. We clinked glasses, but I noticed he had toasted the company, not me. Travis was watching me with barely suppressed excitement, like a child with a secret. This milestone has prompted some important family discussions, my father continued, setting down his glass. The company has reached a size where more traditional corporate governance is appropriate, especially with the IPO on the horizon. I took a small bite of food, saying nothing, waiting for the other shoe to drop. The board, advised by Walter and Peter here, has developed a reorganization plan that will best serve the company going forward. My father nodded to the lawyers who opened their briefcases simultaneously. We're proposing a new corporate structure, Walter explained, sliding documents across the table. Gregory would assume the role of executive chairman, Travis would step in as chief executive officer, and you, Josephine, would become chief innovation officer, focusing exclusively on the technical aspects where your talents clearly lie. The room seemed to tilt slightly as I processed the audacity of their plan. They intended to demote me in my own company, relegating me to a technical role, while Travis, who couldn't explain our algorithm if his life depended on it, would become CEO. This structure is standard for companies preparing for public offering, Peter added. Investors prefer seasoned business leadership with proven track records. Gregory and Travis bring the Wilson Holdings success story to the table. I remain majority shareholder, I stated flatly. This restructuring would require my approval. My father smiled, that same smile I'd seen when Travis had interrupted my presentation in Germany. Actually, Joe, the capital restructuring last quarter adjusted the equity distribution. He slid another document toward me, a complex series of transactions, showing how my ownership had been diluted through what appeared to be legitimate corporate actions. According to this document, I now held only 37% of voting shares, while my father's stake had increased to 42%. When did this happen? I asked, struggling to keep my voice steady. The board approved it in March, Travis said, finally speaking up. It was part of the pre-IPO preparation package. You signed off on it. I had signed hundreds of documents during the IPO preparation process, trusting our legal team to flag anything concerning. Someone had buried this critical change in a stack of routine paperwork, knowing I was overwhelmed with the volume of documents requiring my attention. This is the best path forward, Joe, my father said, his tone softening into the patronizing one he had used throughout my childhood. The company needs steady leadership as it enters the public market. You can focus on what you do best, the technology, without the burden of day-to-day operations. The company needs leadership that understands the product. I countered. Travis has no experience in healthcare technology. He has no relationships with our clients. He doesn't understand our development roadmap or regulatory compliance requirements. Travis laughed. I've been studying the business for over a year now. Besides, CEOs delegate the technical details. My job will be setting strategy and representing the company to investors, things I've been trained to do. This company exists because of my algorithm, my vision, my relationships. I said, my voice rising despite my efforts to remain calm. You can't just step in and take over. The company exists because of Wilson family backing, my father corrected sharply. It's a family business, Joe. It always has been. Travis is ready to take the family business to the next level. The phrase family business ignited something in me. Wilson Medical Technologies was never a family business. It was my company that you tried to colonize after I proved it could succeed. My mother intervened, trying to smooth over the tension. Joe, dear, no one is questioning your contribution. This is about combining strengths. Travis has his MBA from Harvard, connections in the financial world, and I have 7 patents, 150 loyal employees, and relationships with every major hospital system using our technology, I interrupted. What exactly is Travis bringing to the table that outweighs that? The Wilson name, my father stated firmly. The Wilson business reputation that goes back 3 generations. The Wilson approach to leadership that has built successful companies for decades. I stood up, unable to continue the charade of a family dinner. I need to consider this proposal carefully. I assume there's no board vote scheduled for tomorrow. You have until Monday, my father said. The board meets at 9 a.m. to formalize the new structure. I expect you to be professional about this, Josephine. I left without another word, driving aimlessly around Boston for hours, processing what had happened. The lifetime of being underestimated, overlooked in favor of Travis despite my achievements had culminated in this ultimate betrayal. They weren't just taking my position, they were taking credit for everything I had built. But as my initial shock faded, determination took its place. I had created Wilson Medical Technologies from nothing. I had developed the technology, secured the patents, built the team, and nurtured the client relationships. If my father and brother thought they could simply take it all, they had profoundly underestimated me again. I drove to the office, finding it nearly empty at 10 p.m. Only Diane was still there, working late as usual. "Joe, I thought you were at a family dinner," she said, concerned by my expression. "I need to tell you something," I replied, "and then I need your help." Over the next hour, I explained everything to Diane: the planned corporate coup, the dilution of my shares, the intended demotion. As my closest colleague and friend, she understood immediately what was at stake. "Those bastards," she said when I finished. "What are you going to do?" I took a deep breath. "I'm going to save what I built, but I need to understand exactly what I'm dealing with. Can you help me access all the financial and legal documents from the past year? I need to know what else they've done without my knowledge." We worked through the night, methodically reviewing corporate records. What we discovered was worse than I had imagined. Beyond Travis's fraudulent consulting arrangement, my father had been manipulating financial reports to banks and potential investors, painting a picture of company performance that emphasized his strategic guidance while minimizing my role. More disturbing, we found evidence that he had approached several of our largest clients, suggesting that a leadership transition was imminent and that future negotiations should be directed through him rather than me. Some of these clients had long-standing business relationships with Wilson Holdings and might be influenced by these overtures. But we also found something: my father and brother had missed a serious error in their planning that I could leverage. In their eagerness to seize control, they had committed actions that potentially constituted securities fraud. The altered financial reports, misrepresented corporate structure, and undisclosed related party transactions could cause serious legal problems, particularly for a company preparing for an IPO. I carefully documented these irregularities, making copies of everything. This wasn't just about defending my position anymore, it was about having leverage in what was clearly going to be a fight for the company's future. As the sky began to lighten outside our office windows, I had the beginnings of a plan. "Call Lucy and Mark," I told Diane. "Tell them to meet us here at 7 a.m. It's time to bring in the rest of the executive team." By 7 a.m., our conference room held a sleepy but alert group: Lucy Winters, our CFO, Mark Daniels, our CTO, Sarah Thompson from marketing, and Jonathan Powell, our head of client relations. These were the people I trusted most at Wilson Medical Technologies, my core team who had been with me through the company's most significant growth phase. "I've called you here because we're facing a crisis," I began, then explained the situation in detail. Shock gave way to outrage as I outlined my father and brother's plan. "They can't do this," Jonathan protested. "Our clients work with us because of you and the team you've built. Half our hospital contracts have renewal clauses tied to consistent leadership." "Technically they can do it," Lucy said, the pragmatic financial mind already analyzing options. "With voting control, they can replace the CEO. But," she held up a finger, "they can't force you to stay, Joe. And they can't take what's genuinely yours." This was the crux of my evolving plan. I spent the night reviewing our patent portfolio and employment contracts. The 3 newest patents, the ones that enable predictive treatment outcomes, are still in my personal name, not the company's. The transfer paperwork was prepared, but never executed because of the IPO preparations. Mark whistled. "Those patents are the foundation of our next-generation platform. Without them, they have our current technology, but no path forward," I confirmed. "Additionally, none of you have non-compete clauses in your contracts. My father waived those requirements during his streamlining of our employment practices last year." The implications hung in the air. We could leave, all of us, and there was legally nothing preventing us from starting something new. "I need to know where each of you stands," I said carefully. "I'm not asking for decisions now, but I need to understand what I'm working with." One by one, they declared their loyalty not just to me personally, but to the vision we had built together. The company culture my father planned to dismantle meant something to these people. The mission of improving patient outcomes through better technology wasn't just corporate jargon to them, it was their purpose. "What's the plan?" Sarah asked. "Because if you're thinking what I think you're thinking, the timeline is critical." She was right. We had exactly 3 days until the board meeting that would formalize my removal as CEO. Every hour counted. "First, I need each of you to quietly assess your departments," I instructed. "Lucy, I need a complete picture of our financial position, cash reserves, outstanding contracts, payment schedules. Mark, compile a technical inventory, what's documented, what's still in development, where our intellectual property vulnerabilities might be. Jonathan, I need to know which client relationships are strongest, and which might be vulnerable to my father's influence. Sarah, prepare communications materials we might need, but keep them completely confidential for now." As they dispersed to begin these assessments, I turned to our legal options. Our corporate counsel was too closely tied to the board, so I reached out to Alicia Mendez, a renowned tech industry lawyer I had met at a Women in Technology conference. She agreed to meet me for lunch. "Your situation isn't unusual," Alicia said after I explained everything. "Family dynamics often turn toxic when successful companies are involved, but you have significant leverage here." We spent 2 hours mapping out a strategy that would protect my interests while giving me options for the future. By the time I returned to the office, my team had compiled their assessments, confirming what I suspected: our company's value was primarily in its people and intellectual property, not in its corporate structure. I worked late into the evening with Diane, documenting every contribution I had made to the company's success. Every algorithm I had personally developed, every client relationship I had nurtured, every strategic decision that had led to growth, all meticulously cataloged with supporting evidence. The next morning, I began reaching out to our most important clients, the hospital systems and medical research institutions that formed the backbone of our business. I requested urgent virtual meetings, explaining that I needed to discuss important developments at Wilson Medical Technologies. "Dr. Foster," I said to my first supporter when she appeared on my screen, "I need to inform you of a potential leadership change at WMT and understand how it might affect our relationship." I was honest but careful, explaining the situation without disparaging my family, focusing instead on the potential impact on our product development and support. Dr. Foster's response was immediate. "Joe, we contracted with Wilson Medical Technologies because of you and your team. Our agreement is with the company, but our trust is in the people who built the technology. If you were to leave, well, we'd need to reevaluate our partnership." Similar conversations with other key clients yielded the same message: their loyalty was to the team that had created and supported the technology, not to a corporate entity that might change direction under new leadership. With this information in hand, I met again with my executive team to finalize our strategy. 8 of our 10 senior leaders pledged to follow me if I left, as did Diane, and nearly 30 key engineers and developers from our technical team. Informal surveys suggested that up to 70% of our total staff would choose to leave rather than work under Travis's leadership. By Sunday evening, the night before the board meeting, I had prepared my response to my father's coup. My resignation letter was drafted, reviewed by Alicia, and ready to be delivered. I had secured verbal commitments from our 8 largest clients that they would follow me to a new venture if I left. My key patents were confirmed to be my personal property, not the company's. Most importantly, I had documented evidence of my father and brother's financial improprieties, the fraudulent consulting payments, the misrepresentations to investors, and the undisclosed related party transactions. This wasn't just ammunition for a boardroom fight. It was potential evidence in regulatory proceedings that could derail the IPO entirely. As a final piece of preparation, I met with Travis for coffee Sunday afternoon, ostensibly to discuss the transition. I recorded our entire conversation legally, using a one-party consent app on my phone. "I don't understand what you actually plan to do as CEO," I said, keeping my tone neutral. "The technology is complex, and our clients expect detailed discussions about implementation and outcomes." Travis laughed dismissively. "That's why we have technical people, Joe. CEOs delegate that boring stuff. My job will be setting the vision, making the big deals, being the face of the company." "And what vision do you have for our technology?" He waved vaguely. "Expansion, obviously. Maybe acquisition by a major tech player once the IPO establishes our value." Dad thinks Google or Microsoft might be interested in a couple years. The point is to build it up and cash out. That's how business works. What about the patient impact the lives we're saving by improving diagnostic accuracy? Travis rolled his eyes. That's good marketing material, but let's be real, this is about building value for shareholders, not some medical crusade. The hospitals pay because it saves them money and reduces liability, not because of some heartwarming mission statement. Every word he spoke revealed his fundamental misunderstanding of what made our company valuable. By the time I left that meeting, I was more certain than ever that I was making the right choice. That night, I hardly slept running through scenarios and contingency plans. By morning, I was exhausted but resolute. I dressed carefully in my most professional outfit, a tailored navy suit that projected confidence and authority, and drove to the office for the 9 a.m. board meeting that would determine the future of everything I had built. The Wilson Medical Technologies boardroom was unusually full that Monday morning. In addition to the official board members, Travis sat near my father, barely containing his excitement. Walter and Peter, the attorneys, arranged papers at the far end of the table. My executive team had positioned themselves along the wall, their presence unexpected by my father, who frowned at their arrival. "I didn't realize this was an open meeting," he commented as Lucy, Mark, and the others filed in. "As key stakeholders in the company's future, they have a right to observe," I replied calmly, taking my seat at the head of the table, likely for the last time. My father cleared his throat. "Let's begin. The primary agenda item today is the corporate restructuring we've discussed previously. Walter has prepared the necessary documentation." The attorney began distributing folders, but I held up my hand. "Before we proceed, I have an announcement." I reached into my portfolio and withdrew my resignation letter, placing a copy in front of each board member. "Effective immediately, I am resigning as Chief Executive Officer of Wilson Medical Technologies." Additionally, I nodded to my executive team, who each stepped forward to distribute their own letters. You'll find that 80% of the executive leadership team is also resigning. The room erupted in confusion. My father's face flushed dark red as he scanned my letter. "This is absurd, Josephine. You can't just quit because you're not getting your way." "I'm not quitting because I'm not getting my way, Dad. I'm leaving because this company is being led in a direction that contradicts its founding mission and jeopardizes its future success." Travis laughed nervously. "Dramatic as always, sis. The company will be fine. We can replace executives." I turned to him with a calmness that surprised even me. "Can you replace the patents that form the foundation of our next-generation platform? The ones registered in my personal name that were never transferred to the company?" My father's head snapped up from the resignation letter. "What are you talking about? All company intellectual property belongs to the company." "Actually," Alicia Mendez said, entering the room on cue, "the 3 most recent and valuable patents were filed under Dr. Wilson's name personally, with an intent to transfer that was never executed. These patents remain her intellectual property." She distributed a legal analysis confirming this fact. The board members read it with growing alarm, while my father and Travis exchanged panicked glances. Furthermore, I continued, "I've spoken with our top clients. They've expressed that their relationship is with the team that developed and supports the technology, not with a corporate entity. I have written statements from clients representing 65% of our annual revenue, indicating they would terminate their contracts in the event of significant leadership changes." Jonathan stepped forward, presenting a folder containing these client statements. The board members looked increasingly disturbed as they reviewed the documents. "And finally," I said, "I need to inform the board of several financial and regulatory concerns that have recently come to light." Lucy distributed a detailed analysis of the irregularities we had discovered: the fraudulent consulting payments to Travis, the misrepresentations to potential investors, and the undisclosed related party transactions. The legal implications were clearly outlined by Alicia in an accompanying memo. "These issues would need to be disclosed and remediated before any IPO could proceed," Lucy explained professionally. "The SEC would require full transparency on these matters, which could significantly delay the public offering and potentially trigger regulatory investigations." The boardroom fell silent as the full impact of my countermove sank in. My father stared at me with a mixture of rage and, perhaps for the first time, genuine respect. "What exactly are you trying to accomplish here, Joe?" he finally asked. "I'm protecting what I built," I answered simply. "You and Travis wanted to take control of my company without understanding what makes it valuable. It's not the corporate structure or the Wilson name, it's the people, the technology, and the mission. I stood up, gathering my things. My team and I are leaving to start a new venture. We'll be taking our expertise, our client relationships, and my patents with us. The choice for Wilson Medical Technologies is simple. Either negotiate a fair arrangement with us for licensing the patent technology, or watch your $50 million company become a hollow shell within months. Travis jumped to his feet. This is blackmail. You can't just walk out and take everything with you. I'm not taking everything, I corrected him. I'm taking what's rightfully mine, what I created. You and Dad wanted to be in the healthcare technology business. Well, now's your chance to see if you can run one without the technology or the people who built it. My executive team and I walked out together, leaving my father, Travis, and the board in stunned silence. As the boardroom door closed behind us, spontaneous applause erupted from staff who had gathered in the hallway. Word had spread quickly throughout the office. 3 weeks later, Nexus Medical AI launched with seed funding of $15 million. Our team had grown to include 85 former Wilson Medical Technologies employees, more than half of their total staff. We secured immediate contracts with 11 major hospital systems, all former WMT clients who had terminated their agreements, citing material change in company leadership and technical capabilities. My personal patents formed the foundation of our new technology platform, which we rapidly expanded with new innovations freed from the constraints of my father's conservative approach. 6 months after our departure, we closed a Series A funding round that valued Nexus at $30 million. Meanwhile, Wilson Medical Technologies was in freefall. Without the technical team to maintain and update their systems, client satisfaction plummeted. Without my patents, they had no path forward for product development. Travis's lack of understanding of the technology became painfully apparent in client meetings and industry events. Within 6 months, WMT had laid off half its remaining staff and was seeking a buyer at a fraction of its former valuation. On a crisp autumn morning, exactly 1 year after our departure, my assistant informed me that Gregory Wilson was in the lobby asking to meet. I considered refusing, but decided to hear what he had to say. My father looked older, the strain of the past year evident in the new lines on his face. He sat across from me in the sleek conference room of our new headquarters, taking in the awards and recognition that already adorned the walls. "You've done well," he acknowledged, nodding at our company logo displayed prominently behind my desk. "Better than I anticipated." "Thank you," I replied simply. He sighed heavily. "Wilson Medical Technologies is filing for bankruptcy protection next week. There's nothing left to salvage." I said nothing, waiting for him to continue. "I was wrong about you, Joe. Wrong about what you built and how you built it." The admission clearly cost him considerable pride. I thought I could transfer success from one family member to another like a baton in a relay race. I didn't understand that what you created couldn't be separated from you. It wasn't just me, I corrected. It was the team I built, the culture we created together, the shared mission we believed in. That's something Travis never understood. Success isn't just about the person at the top. He nodded slowly. Travis has gone back to Wilson Holdings. He's better suited to real estate than technology. After a pause, he added, "I'd like to propose something. WMT still owns the original technology and the Wilson Medical Technologies name, though without your patents, they're of limited value. Would Nexus be interested in acquiring these assets? It would keep them from being broken up in bankruptcy proceedings." I studied my father carefully. We might be interested at fair market value. Our team is familiar with the original platform, and there would be some efficiency in bringing it under our umbrella. Fair market value today is pennies on the dollar compared to what it was worth a year ago, he noted ruefully. Yes, I agreed without sympathy. That's an accurate assessment of the situation. We negotiated briefly, reaching a preliminary agreement that would allow Nexus to acquire WMT's intellectual property and client contracts at a fraction of their former value. As he stood to leave, my father paused. "Your grandmother would be proud of you, Joe. She always said you had a steel spine behind those quiet eyes." It was the first genuine compliment he had ever given me that wasn't backhanded or qualified. I accepted it with a simple nod. After he left, I walked through our office, an entire floor in Cambridge's premier tech building. Our team of now 120 people was busy developing new applications of our AI technology for oncology, neurology, and cardiology. The mission remained the same, using technology to improve patient outcomes. But the culture had evolved into something even stronger, a company where innovation was valued, where merit determined advancement, where the mission drove every decision. Standing at the window overlooking the Charles River, I reflected on everything that had happened. I had lost a company but gained a better one. I had lost family relationships but strengthened bonds with a team that shared my values. I had experienced betrayal but discovered my own resilience. The most important lesson wasn't about business strategy or corporate governance, it was about recognizing your true value and having the courage to walk away when others fail to see it. My father and brother had believed they could separate me from my creation, that they could take the company without taking what made it valuable. Their fundamental misunderstanding was thinking that the company's value was in its name, its structure, its financial statements, when the real value was in the people, the innovation, and the mission we pursued together. Have you ever had to walk away from something you built to protect your own worth? Or found yourself fighting to be valued in a place where others take credit for your work? Comment below and share your experience. If this story resonated with you, please like and subscribe to hear more journeys of resilience and determination. And if you know someone facing similar challenges, share this video with them. Sometimes knowing we're not alone in our struggles makes all the difference. Thank you for listening to my story, and remember, your value isn't determined by others' perception, it's in what you build, who you help, and the difference you make.